Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel and to this episode of Star Watch, which is a weekly astrological transit report. If you are new here, my name is Jane. Thanks so much for being here. So this week is the week. I've been talking about it for a really long time. I know pretty much every astrologer has been talking about it for a long time because it is a week to look forward to. Now, last week we talked a lot about the nodes, right? North node moving into Aries, South node moving into Libra. And this week we have the Venus retrograde. And she's, it's not very common that Venus retrogrades. So whenever it does happen, we usually feel it, and it's really important to take note of it. She's retrograding on the 22nd. And she's doing it here at the 28th degree. And I think it's important to note that she is in this interesting yod pattern here with Neptune and Pluto. Now, a yod pattern is kind of these are odd angles, okay? And they don't communicate very well. So Neptune and Venus and Pluto and Venus are just not communicating very well at all. And I think this is really time to take off those rose-colored glasses about stuff, specifically your romantic relationships and specifically any kind of story or narrative that you have regarding your self-worth that's just really not suiting you anymore. It's really common that we tend to, and I hate to kind of use this word, but I'll use this word because it's Venus. Sometimes we often romanticize our negative narratives sometimes, and we build those negative narratives to be much bigger than they actually are. And I think this is something that's going to help us come back to reality, because Neptune is not offering that fogginess, that haziness, that delusion, that's not happening here. In fact, it feels kind of like the opposite. It's going to be really hard for anyone to be romanticizing something about themselves that just simply isn't true. This could also go the other way toward maybe overly deluded egos and things like that too. It's going to be hard to maintain that during this particular Venus retrograde because of this quincunx relationship here. Plus, we also have the transformative quality aspecting Venus. And like I say, these don't communicate very well. So this may become one of those moments where you're like, I know something needs to change. I know something needs to die off. I just don't know what needs to die off, or I don't know how to make that happen. And I don't feel like I have a significant sense of direction here. So this Venus retrograde is likely going to surface a lot of questions, and there's going to be a lot of powerlessness to answer those questions ourselves. All right. And this is going to kind of demand that we have a lot of faith in things. I want to remind you that Venus, okay, she's a beautiful planet, money, love, relationships, beauty, music, art, all of the wonderful cultured aspects of life. Yes, she is a benefic planet, but she's also the ruler of Libra, which in the tarot is symbolized by the Justice card. And that is the only zodiac sign in the entire zodiac that is symbolized by an inanimate object. And it is the scales of justice, which are not always the most friendly, right? And it is one of those things where the universe or karma or the wheel of fortune or whatever you want to think of it as, spirit, your higher self, is going through this process of making things right. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean it's the way you want it to be. Big difference. It might not be what you want it to be, but it is going to be right. It's going to be right for the overall balance of the universe, and therefore will ultimately be in your best interest. So regardless of what actually transpires over the next couple of months, it's going to be easiest to just say, well, this is for the best. If someone leaves, if someone comes, if someone does something, if someone shows an aspect of themselves, whatever the issue is, it is for the best. Okay? And it is the scales of justice coming into balance. It's also possible that we tap in to hidden parts of us. which would be the scales of justice coming into balance as well. If there's been any repressed stuff. Now, one of the big reasons why I say that is because Lilith is involved in this particular retrograde. Now, she moves quickly, so she's not going to be hanging around for the whole time. In fact, next week she'll already be in Virgo. But at the time of the retrograde itself, so if I go forward to July 22nd, okay, we can see that Venus and Lilith are right on top of each other right here. And Lilith is at that 29th degree of Leo, which is pretty strong, so it kind of amplifies her energy. So let's talk about Lilith for just a second. She is a very raw entity, okay? And this is where a lot of anger and revenge and jealousy and kind of a place where we've been scorned, where we have a lot of pain, where we are sensitive and we can get triggered very easily. But it's not the type of trigger where you're like, oh, I'm triggered, let me sit with that and think about it. It's usually more like, oh, I'm triggered and I hate it. I'm triggered and I hate it. And, you know, we can act out. No matter how conscious you are, no matter how in the 5D you are, sometimes something can just happen in our lives that just, now I'm not saying it's going to happen this week. Okay, please don't think that. Not everyone is going to go through that this week. But she has a say a little bit in this Venus retrograde because she's so close to it at the time of the retrograde itself. So at some point over the next couple of months, there is likely going to be something that happens or someone says something or an event occurs and you're going to be like, wow, I do not like this. I don't like this about myself. I don't like this about my situation. I don't like how I handled it. I don't like the feeling that it gave me. And there can often be a lot of powerlessness, but really, Lilith is a very powerful planet because she is so raw and true. Well, she's not a planet. I'm sorry. She's the mathematical point. I always say planet for the nodes and some other things. I didn't mean that. But this entity, she's powerful because it's true, right? That emotion is true. And that's one thing we don't talk about, like anger enough. Like anger is a true thing. Even jealousy can be a true thing as long as you kind of scale it back to the origin of that. Whatever it is that you're feeling, the blockages, all those things that really, really get under your skin, they're true. And it's good because when we come into contact with that, we can ultimately work through it. We can ultimately improve and heal and do all those types of things. And I think that's going to be a big part of what this Venus retrograde is about, is getting in touch with our more primal, animal, you know, kind of lower mind kind of thing, kind of self. And the fact that this is in Leo makes it even that much more powerful, since the Leo archetype offers that sunlight, right? That projection. There's a lot of projection going on out there, or there will be. So, you know, the raw emotion is certainly nothing to feel badly about. I think sometimes even in the spiritual and the healing and therapy and psychology, it's like sometimes when we have those big emotions, we can be like, oh, I should know better. I should feel better about it. I should be able to forgive. I should be able to move on. I should this, I should that. There can be a lot of shame around that kind of stuff as well. But the fact that it's coming up, I think, tells you a lot about what you want. You know, it tells you a lot about who you want to be. If someone says something and you get vehemently angry, or you feel this, like, you know, flames coming into your cheeks because someone, you know, says or does, or you see something and there's this whole mixture of tension and all of that, if that happens, it's an indication of what you want and who you truly want to be, and it's trying to come out, and that's Venus balancing the scales. So it's just something to be aware of as we move forward through this process. Leo demands authenticity, and so does Lilith. Okay, it's really hard to beat around the bush when we're talking about these archetypes. It's hard to be anything other than the purest, anything other than the best. All right, so I don't know. There's nothing for you to do to really prepare. It's just something to think about. And even as the sun comes into Leo, it is a very self-centric time, and I've been talking about that quite a bit, especially when we came into Cancer season. Cancer and Leo seasons, these are the times of the year that are ruled by the luminaries, the moon and the sun. And the luminary quality, it's not social, really. It's really not social. It's 100% about you. It's about your feelings, your experience, your perspective, your point of view. So to keep that in mind and say that that is valid, and of course you can be compassionate and considerate of other and accommodate others to some degree, but please do not hold back on what your personal experience is. I mean, there's a reason why Leo is associated with art and creativity, because this is where we take what's going on inside of us and we convert it into something, whether it's a painting or a sculpture or music or a play or a movie or any other types of, poetry, whatever. We take what is inside of us and we put it out there in a beautiful way to share with the world that ultimately brings us together. But it's not really that's not really the goal. The goal is to get it out of you. It's to share you. All right. So it's okay to continually check in with yourself and say, well, what am I feeling? What am I thinking? What do I want? What do I value? Where, and to make it that way. Even if you're one of those people that tends to worry so much about other people, I think it's going to be hard to do that. Okay. So it's exciting for that. Plus, we also have a Chiron retrograde going on too, which is a healing, and well, again, not a planet. It's an asteroid. I'm sorry. I always say planet. It's a healing asteroid. It brings out a lot of stuff. And I'm just looking at some of the aspects here. I mean, there are some little aspects going on, but I don't know that they're going to be super noticeable, if you will. But I think this is going to add to the rawness of stuff. And the rawness can also come out very aggressive, where you might even get short with people or extra annoyed when you're driving. If you tend to be like one of those road rager people, this might be amplified even that much more agitation coming through. But Chiron has been doing a bang up job for real since 2018 of, getting us to go inside ourselves, getting us to heal and getting us to work through a lot of the things that we have, a lot of the traumas that we've experienced and making sense of a lot of those things. Aries is the zodiac sign that rules the head. Mars rules the blood. There's a connection with the brain here under Aries as well. So it would make sense. And also with Scorpio, we have kind of the more psychological component, right? The two Mars ruled signs. They are mind oriented for sure. They're mind-oriented. So Chiron in a mind-oriented zodiac sign and doing this retrograde here is helping us to come in closer contact with our truest mind to help us to heal and overcome. So this retrograde is going to add to the sensitivity factor with everything else that's going on. And it might, we may just kind of feel a little off, but it could be a good off where we feel empowered and we feel strong, or it could be kind of a weaker feeling off where maybe we feel a little bit tired or we feel like we don't want to deal with people because of how agitated we are. Okay? We have Mars still in Virgo here. Mars is now officially coming off of this opposition with Saturn. And that's actually how, we can kind of, if we go back to today, still building up, but through the end of the week, it's going to be coming off. So we're going to kind of start to feel the waning of the Mars-Saturn stuff. And as Mars continues on through Virgo, don't be surprised if things, kind of fall out of place. Virgo, while it's all about organization, it's not... We always have to kind of incorporate an element of chaos, as it is a Mercury-ruled sign. Doesn't mean you can't still be productive. A lot of people with Mars and Virgo can be exceptionally productive during this time, but it can be a little bit of a kind of chaotic productive, if that makes any sense at all. And that's really the big stuff. That's the big stuff of the week. Don't forget, we have this Sun-Pluto opposition going on today and tomorrow and the next day. And, of course, Pluto really demands change. But because it's communicating strangely with Venus, there may be a question of, well, what do we value most, which could make that, we want change. We know change is coming. We can feel it, but maybe we don't quite know exactly what that means for us. We don't know what that means for us to do or how to make it happen or something like that. So if you are facing bigger questions, it's okay. I wouldn't recommend pushing yourself into an answer, especially not as Mercury. Now, this is not happening this week, but over the next few weeks, Mercury is going to come into Virgo, and then it's going to start going through its pre-shadow phase, which is going to add to that chaos even more. But a lot of information can come through that period of chaos. It can come through that period of things kind of being all over the place and things not getting finished and things just kind of being all splayed out and open, and you don't really know which direction to take. That's okay. That's going to be expected in the weeks to come. Right now, the main goal is just kind of follow your heart. And if all you know is what your heart is saying today, then that's all you need to know. You don't have to be so future focused right now. You don't have to know exactly where all of this is going. All you need to know is that when you wake up in the morning, are you doing at least one thing that your heart is screaming for you to do, even if that's just sitting on your porch, drinking a cup of tea and reading a good book or something like that. All right, you can keep it simple with all of this because there's a lot of processing that's going on here. Now, if you are feeling compelled to create and play, then that is obviously highly advantageous for you. So if there's any creative hobby or anything going on at work or anything in your life that, kind of taps into that inner child, that is going to be kind of a beneficial use of your time, a productive use of your time. It doesn't all have to be all like, well, is this gonna get me where I want to be in 30 years? It doesn't always have to be so much about that. Sometimes you can just enjoy life, enjoy today, enjoy the beautiful weather, enjoy. That's Leo. It's pleasure. It's about fun. Leo is the fun sign. So just enjoy. Okay? All right, Leo. Or not Leo. Everybody. I'm going to leave you guys there. Thank you so much. I love you. Have a good week. Take care.